Let me ask you something. How many times have you looked back at a moment in your life and said, if only I had known, if only I had done it differently? We all have. Every one of us carries a little weight called regret. It's not the weight of failure teaches. It's the weight of inaction, of missed opportunity, of not listening to that voice inside when it whispered, "This is your moment." And today, I want to talk about the things I wish I knew sooner. Not because I want to sit in regret, but because if you're listening right now, I want you to skip the pain that took me years to understand. I want you to wake up not tomorrow, today. 1. I wish I knew sooner. That pain is not the enemy. We spend our lives avoiding pain, trying to stay comfortable, but growth doesn't happen in comfort. Growth happens in discomfort, in fear, in uncertainty, that pit in your stomach when you're about to make a bold move. That's not fear stopping you, that's your potential waking up. Pain has a message. It's trying to show you what needs to change. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Your worst moments. They are your greatest lessons. Your breakdowns, they are the start of your breakthroughs. But only if you stop running from them and face them head. On to, I wish I knew sooner, that confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Confidence isn't gifted, it's forged like steel in fire. Every time you show up when it's hard, every time you push 1 inch past what's comfortable, you're laying a brick in the foundation of your belief. Stop waiting to feel ready. The truth, you'll never feel ready. Do it anyway. Take action before you're ready, and that's when the magic happens. You don't need more motivation. You need momentum. And momentum starts with one decision backed by massive action. 3. I wish I knew sooner that saying yes to everyone else means saying no to yourself. People pleasing is not kindness. It's a silent form of self-sabotage. You cannot live your truth while constantly adjusting to someone else's expectations. Start honoring your own voice. Set boundaries like your life depends on it, because it does. The moment you stop trying to fit into everyone's version of who you should be is the moment you start becoming who you were meant to be. This life, it's yours. Stop giving away your power just to be liked. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be legendary. 4. I wish I knew sooner that waiting for the perfect time is the fastest way to waste your life. The perfect time is a lie. It doesn't exist. There will always be something in the way: fear, uncertainty, finances, what people think. But here's the truth: life isn't going to slow down until you're ready. It's happening right now. Every day you wait is a day you never get back. Stop rehearsing your potential. Live it. Messy, uncertain, imperfect, just start. Take one step and then another. Don't wait for confidence. Build it as you go. 5. I wish I knew sooner. That environment is everything. Your environment is either feeding your greatness or feeding your doubt. Look around you. Who do you surround yourself with? What do you consume daily? What do you tolerate? You become what you repeatedly allow. If you want a new life, build a new standard. Elevate your circle. Stop spending your life explaining your dreams to people who don't even believe in themselves. Energy is contagious. Get around people who raise your vibration, not drain it. Because nothing changes until you change, and change is impossible in a toxic atmosphere. 6. I wish I knew sooner that you already have everything you need. We live in a culture obsessed with more tools, more resources, more knowledge. But let me tell you something. You don't need more. You need to use what you already have. The most successful people in the world didn't start with more. They started with a decision. They started with hunger. With a belief so powerful, it burned louder than their excuses. Right now, in this moment, you have untapped strength inside of you. You have fire that hasn't been unleashed. You are not broken. You are becoming. But you have to stop looking outside for permission and start looking inside for power. 7. I wish I knew sooner that it's not about what happens to you. It's about how you respond. Life will throw things at you. People will disappoint you. You will fail, you will lose, but none of that defines you. What defines you is how you respond, what you decide to do with the pain, what meaning you attach to the storm. Some people get bitter, Some get better. Don't pray for an easy life. Pray for strength. Pray for courage. Pray for wisdom to turn every obstacle into opportunity. Because life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. I wish I knew all of this sooner, but maybe I was supposed to learn it exactly when I did. Maybe I had to fall so I could rise with wisdom instead of ego. Maybe I had to lose time to finally respect time. But you have a choice. You don't have to wait. You don't have to carry the same regrets. You can decide right now that your life changes today. Don't wait another year, another month, another moment. Stand up, speak up, step up, and become the version of you who stops saying, "I wish I knew," and starts saying, "I'm glad I acted." Because when you do, that's the moment everything shifts. We've been taught to run from pain, to avoid it, numb it, escape it. But what no one tells you early enough is that pain isn't the enemy, it's the greatest teacher life offers. It's not here to punish you, it's here to wake you up. Most people live their entire lives in avoidance mode. They avoid hard conversations, they avoid discipline, they avoid the mirror. But pain doesn't go away just because you ignore it. It waits. And when it shows up loud. The truth is, the things that break us open are often the very things that set us free. Every time life knocked me down, every time something hurt so badly I didn't think I could breathe, that's when a new part of me was being formed. Not in comfort, not in routine, but in the fire. There's a voice inside us that whispers in moments of pain. That whisper says, "This isn't right," or "You're made for more," or "It's time to change." But most of us are so busy trying to quiet that voice that we forget that voice is trying to lead us somewhere better. Pain is not something to fear. Pain is something to listen to. It's a compass pointing toward growth. But growth never feels like growth in the moment. It feels like chaos. It feels like being lost. It feels like breaking. Yet if you lean in, if you let it move through you instead of avoiding it, something extraordinary happens. You transform. Some of the strongest people you've ever seen, the ones who walk with power in their voice and conviction in their eyes, didn't get that from easy lives. They earned it through heartbreak, through betrayal, through loss, through failure. They didn't just go through pain, they grew through it. They let it shape them. They chose to stand back up again and again, even when no one was clapping. That's where character is built. That's where power is created. Not in the good days, but in the days where you have every excuse to give up and you choose not to. We all want to live a meaningful life, but we think meaning comes from happiness. It doesn't. It comes from overcoming. It comes from struggle that isn't wasted. There's a reason people who have suffered deeply often radiate a certain strength. They've met themselves at their lowest. They've had to confront their truth when no one was watching. They've had to build their worth from the inside out, brick by brick. Pain introduced them to parts of themselves they didn't even know existed. The warrior, the survivor, the leader, the healer, and it was in those dark places, those unseen battles, that they became someone unshakable. The sooner you understand that pain is part of the process, the less time you'll waste resisting what's necessary. We weren't put here to coast. We were put here to evolve, and evolution doesn't happen without discomfort. You can read all the books, listen to all the speeches, take all the courses, but the lessons that stick, the ones that shape who you are the ones learned in the fire. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" that's the moment everything begins to shift, because pain isn't here to keep you stuck. It's here to set you free. Confidence is one of the most misunderstood things in the world. People think you're either born with it or you're not, like it's some kind of personality trait reserved for the chosen few, but that's not how it works. Confidence isn't gifted to you by the universe, it's forged in action. It's built moment by moment, decision by decision, every single time you show up when you don't feel ready. It's not something you wait for. It's something you create. The problem is, We've been conditioned to believe that we need to feel confident before we can act. But the truth is, confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. You do the thing scared, uncertain, insecure, and because you did it anyway, a part of you begins to believe, maybe I can. And that tiny belief becomes a spark. That spark, if protected and fed, becomes a flame. And before you know it, you're walking differently, speaking differently, showing up differently, not because you suddenly became someone else, but because you finally started trusting the version of you that always existed beneath the fear. Every confident person you've ever admired once felt exactly like you. They second, guessed themselves, they doubted, they questioned. But what separated them wasn't talent or luck or charisma, it was that they kept moving. They kept choosing courage over comfort. They kept stacking tiny wins when no one was watching. That's what builds the inner foundation, not applause, not validation, quiet repetition, silent consistency, relentless effort, the reps you put in when the world isn't cheering, the risks you take when your hands are shaking. That's the birthplace of real confidence. Most people stay stuck not because they lack ability, but because they keep waiting to feel ready. But readiness is a lie. If you wait until everything is certain, until all the fear is gone, until the conditions are perfect, you'll be waiting your whole life. Growth doesn't care about your timing. Opportunity doesn't knock only when you're prepared. Life rewards the bold, the ones willing to jump before the net appears, and that jump, that moment of boldness, it changes everything. Because when you take action in the face of fear, you train your nervous system to stop seeing fear as a stop sign and start seeing it as a signal. A signal that you're on the edge of something new, something better, something that will stretch you into the version of yourself you haven't met yet. Confidence is not ego. It's not pretending you have it all together. It's not loud. It's not arrogant. Real confidence is quiet. It's the inner knowing that no matter what happens, you'll figure it out. That even if you fall, you'll get back up. That even if you fail, you'll rise stronger. That kind of belief doesn't come from talking about it. It comes from living it, from choosing action over excuses, from choosing movement over perfection, from taking the leap over and over until flying becomes familiar. You become confident not by avoiding fear, but by walking through it so many times that it stops having power over you. Every uncomfortable conversation you have, every new skill you learn, every time you show up when no one expects you to, you're writing a new story. A story where you're not a victim of your doubt, but the author of your potential. And the more you write that story, the more you reinforce a new identity. One rooted not in pretending to be someone you're not, but in remembering who you've always been beneath the fear. Most people are exhausted not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing too much for everyone else and not nearly enough for themselves. We grow up learning that being liked, being agreeable, being available is a form of success. We get rewarded for being easy to work with, for saying yes without hesitation, for showing up even when we're falling apart inside. But no one claps for the cost. No one sees the quiet resentment building, the dreams delayed, the identity fading behind a wall of expectations. When you say yes to everyone around you, you're not being kind, you're abandoning yourself. There's a difference between service and self-sacrifice, and most people confuse the two. There's nothing noble about constantly pouring from an empty cup. You can't give your best to the world if you've forgotten how to give anything to yourself. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you trade a piece of your truth for approval. Every time you bite your tongue to keep the peace, you create a war inside your own mind. Boundaries are not selfish. They are necessary. They are the lines that protect your energy, your time, your mental clarity. And without them, you become a version of yourself that is constantly overextended, constantly reactive, constantly apologizing for simply needing space. The world has conditioned us to believe that busyness equals value, that the more we give, the more worthy we are. But your worth isn't measured by how many people you please. Your worth is intrinsic. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify your no. You don't have to explain why your peace matters, People will only treat you the way you allow. And if you've built a life where everyone expects you to be available 24/7, to say yes without question, to absorb their stress and ignore your own, you've trained them into that behavior. But here's the power: you can untrain them. You can rewrite the rules. It starts by honoring the small voice inside you that says, I need space. I'm tired. This isn't for me. That voice is not weak. It's wisdom, and the more you listen to it, the stronger it gets. The more you follow it, the freer you become. We think saying no will make people angry, disappointed, distant. But the people who truly value you will respect your boundaries. And the ones who don't, they were only attached to the version of you who gave without limits. That's not love. That's convenience. If someone only values you when you're useful to them, it's not a loss to walk away. It's a win to reclaim your power. You don't have to explain your evolution to people committed to misunderstanding you. You just have to keep growing, keep aligning, keep choosing yourself without guilt. The greatest freedom is living in alignment with your truth, not the truth others project onto you, not the expectations passed down or imposed, but the truth that comes from knowing who you are and what you need. When you start living from that place, everything shifts. You stop chasing approval. You stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. You begin to attract people, opportunities, and experiences that match your energy, your values, your vision. And suddenly, the weight you've been carrying, the weight of being everything to everyone, begins to lift. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you decided that your peace, your dreams, your voice mattered enough to protect. We've been conditioned to wait. Wait for the right moment, the perfect alignment, the green light that tells us it's finally safe to go after what we want. But the truth is, that moment rarely comes. The perfect time is a myth, a convenient excuse wrapped in logic. It's the story we tell ourselves to delay the discomfort of action. We say we're preparing, planning, getting ready, but what we're really doing is protecting ourselves from the possibility of failing, from the judgment of others, from the fear of not being enough. And so we wait. We wait until the kids are grown, until the job is stable, until we have more money, more confidence, more clarity. But life doesn't pause while we wait. The clock keeps ticking, the days keep moving, and before we know it, we're looking back at years of almosts and maybes. Nothing extraordinary happens in the waiting room of life. Greatness doesn't come to those who hesitate. It comes to those who leap, who start messy, who move forward even when everything feels uncertain. The people who change their lives, who create something powerful, aren't the ones who had everything figured out. They're the ones who started anyway. They understood that motion creates clarity, not the other way around. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. You don't need to know how it will all work out to begin. You just need to move, because once you move, momentum kicks in. Confidence builds. Patterns shift, and life begins to respond to your courage. There's a high cost to waiting that no one talks about. Every day you don't take action is a day your dream fades a little more. It's a day you reinforce the belief that you're not ready, that you're not capable. And that belief becomes your identity. You start to shrink yourself to fit inside a life that doesn't excite you, just because it feels safe. But safety is often the enemy of growth. The truth is, you'll never feel 100% ready. You'll always feel a little scared, a little unsure, a little behind. That's part of the process. Those feelings aren't signs to stop. They're signs you're on the edge of something meaningful. The longer you wait, the heavier your regrets become. Not because you failed, but because you never gave yourself the chance to see what was possible. The pain of failing is temporary, but the pain of what could have been lasts a lifetime. You don't want to be the person who looks back and realizes they were always one decision away from a completely different life. You don't want to carry the weight of knowing you had more in you, more purpose, more power, more potential, but you buried it beneath doubt and delay. You already have everything you need to begin. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a decision to act, to trust yourself, to move forward in faith, not fear. Action isn't just a step, it's a statement. It tells the world, and more importantly yourself, that you're done waiting, that your time isn't someday, it's now, that your vision isn't a fantasy, it's a future that begins the moment you commit. You don't need permission to start. You don't need applause. You don't need certainty. You need to stop waiting for the perfect time and realize that this moment, right here, is already full of enough power to change everything. Your environment is one of the most powerful forces shaping who you become, and yet it's the most overlooked. People obsess over mindset, motivation, willpower, but ignore the fact that who and what you're surrounded by is either fueling your growth or draining your potential. You can have the biggest dreams, the strongest work ethic, and the clearest vision, but if you're constantly in an environment that doubts you, distracts you, or depletes you, your progress will always be slower than it should be. Most people don't fail because they're incapable, they fail because they're trying to bloom in poisoned soil. It's hard to stay inspired when you're surrounded by people who are addicted to complaining. It's hard to believe in yourself when you're always defending your goals to people who don't even believe in themselves. Energy is contagious. Beliefs are contagious. Habits are contagious. The question is, what are you catching every day? Every conversation, every room you walk into, every voice you listen to is either reinforcing the person you're becoming or pulling you back into the person you've outgrown. And sometimes the hardest part of growth is realizing you have to create distance between you and the familiar. Not because you're better than anyone, but because your peace, your purpose, your evolution requires it. If you want to change your life, start by changing your environment. Curate it like your future depends on it, because it does. Audit your circle, audit your inputs, look at where your attention goes. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows, and where your energy flows, that becomes your reality. Protecting your energy is not just about staying positive. It's about staying aligned. It's about choosing to surround yourself with people and things that challenge you to rise, not shrink. It's about realizing that not everyone deserves access to your mind, your time, your emotional bandwidth. You are not obligated to stay in environments that make you feel small just because they're familiar. You owe it to yourself to seek out spaces that reflect the future you're building, not the past you've escaped. That could mean joining a new community, cutting ties with energy, draining relationships, or simply being more intentional about what you consume: books, content, conversations. People often talk about how hard it is to stay consistent, to stay motivated, to stay disciplined. But the truth is, when you're in the right environment, half the battle is already won. If you're surrounded by people who hold you accountable, who push you to grow, who remind you of your worth, showing up becomes easier. Momentum becomes natural. But when you're constantly battling negativity, distractions, and resistance from those closest to you, it feels like climbing uphill with weights strapped to your back. It's not that you lack the strength, it's that your environment is working against you. Choosing your environment is choosing your future. You don't have to stay stuck in circles that celebrate mediocrity. You don't have to water yourself down to fit in with people who are scared of change. You don't have to apologize for evolving past what once felt comfortable. Growth requires friction. It requires letting go. And sometimes the most powerful step you can take is to walk away from the noise and build something better, something that supports who you are becoming. Because you are not just the product of your thoughts, you are the product of your surroundings, and the sooner you protect that space, the faster your life begins to reflect who you were always meant to be.